All right, so here we go. Oh boy. So, yes, Diablo 4 will never be the same again after today. I promise you that. So, check it out. We have unofficial Diablo 4 patch notes, and this is significant. This is major changes to your favorite class. We're talking nerfs, buffs, mostly nerfs. So, I warn you, you might want to grab a tissue because you'll probably be crying by the end of this video if you had major plans for your favorite build. Just scratch that. We're going into uncharted territory here, which to me is kind of exciting. So we'll see what type of new builds we can actually craft during the server slam. That's what this is going to be all about. But yeah, I'm going to go over every change, at least the most important changes here to all of the classes. So I'm going to include a video guide in that description below. So if you want to know about the Barbarian or the Druid, you can skip ahead to the section that you actually seek. But yeah, let's dive into this first and foremost. Starting out with, yes, the Barbarian. And by the way, this all comes from Wowhead. If you want to check out the article for yourself, check it out. It's very long-winded, so I did want to break it down for you all. But yes, first and foremost, a flat 10% passive damage reduction has been added to the Barbarian. Some skill tree passives have had their damage reduction effects reduced to compensate. So overall, right there, an interesting buff. So again, this is why I want to actually play as the Barbarian going forward. Now, let's get into some of the actual skill changes. Most notable is that the shouts have all been nerfed across the board. And this is telling me that they want you to kind of experiment more with the offensive type abilities. So instead of like having tons of shouts in your arsenal, you're going to be messing around with more, different abilities like bash perhaps. We'll see. Upheaval, that sort of thing, and really just have a wide variety of builds on offer for the Barbarian. We'll find out if that's actually the case. But hold up now, we got to talk about the nerfs, and let me tell you what, they really nerfed the shouts big time. Check it out right here. We're going to start out with this one. It says this: Rallying Cry. Bellow a rallying cry, increasing your movement speed by 30% and resource generation by 40%. As opposed to 50% previously for 6 seconds, and nearby allies for 3 seconds. So you can see there, that's definitely a nerf, but it gets so much worse. So check it out right here. It says Tactical Rallying Cry. Rallying Cry generates 20 Fury as opposed to 25, and grants you an additional 20% resource generation as opposed to previously 50%. That is an absolutely massive nerf right there for resource generation. I'm kind of curious to see how that's going to pan out. If you're going to be more dependent on actual gear for resource generation, we'll see how this all works out. Now, Warcry says Bellow a mighty Warcry, increasing your damage dealt by 15% for 6 seconds as opposed to 8 seconds previously, and nearby allies for 3 seconds as opposed to the previous 4 seconds. So overall, a nerf for Warcry. But what about Power Warcry? Let's talk about it, shall we? So it says, if at least 6 enemies are nearby when you cast Warcry, your damage bonus is increased by an additional 10% as opposed to what they had previously, which was 30%. So that is also pretty significant. Now, Mighty Warcry says Warcry grants you 15% base life as Fortify as opposed to the 28% previously. Rough right there. Now, let's get into some of the actual skills that you utilize for offensive abilities like, say, Upheaval. What has happened with that one? Is that still reliable? Is that still something we can go to for a build? Now, your lucky hit chance from 20% to 25%. So guess what? That's kind of a buff. Now, let me tell you what's very interesting across all the builds that I have seen, all the classes, is that lucky hit is one of the things that is seeing a buff. It seems like they really want you to go after that stat going forward, either through collecting gear or even in your actual build. They really want lucky chance to matter more and more, it seems. Next up, we have this one right here, and this relates to Upheaval. So brace yourself. It says dealing direct damage to an enemy with a skill that is not Upheaval causes your next cast of Upheaval to deal, instead of 8% damage, it's going to be 3% increased damage, stacking up to 10 times. That is absolutely a huge nerf right there to Upheaval. And some of you might be like, why? Why would they do this? So again, they may want upheaval to be more impactful by a weapon that you find out in the field? I don't know. We'll have to wait and find out. But trust me, they didn't stop there. Let's talk about a Thorn build for your Barbarian, because it's not going to be as viable as it was before. So check it out. It's a strategic challenging shout. While challenging shout is active, gain Thorns equal to 30% of your maximum life as opposed to 50% previously. Pretty significant change right there. We're going to count that in the nerf category. Now, tough as nails. Increase your thorns by, instead of 20 to 40 to 60%, it's now 3, 6%, and 9%. An absolutely huge, massive nerf to tough as nails. Now, when enemies hit you, they take an additional 10% of your thorns as bleeding damage over 5 seconds. And previously, it was 1%. But when it comes to those initial increases, that is a pretty big nerf right there to the Thorn build. And a lot of people were pretty much disappointed about that. We're going to talk about what the community has to say later on in the video, so stay tuned. So what about the Druid? The Druid saw some really exciting changes as well. We got to get into this right now, so check it out right here. First of all, starting out with the Companions, which overall, Companions have seen a buff. So a Companion-based build seems to be more viable. So it says for Wolves, passive. Summon 2 Wolf Companions that bite enemies for 7% damage. No change there. Now for active, direct your wolves to focus on an enemy, leaping to them and striking for 110% damage as opposed to the 35% previously. That is an absolutely massive buff right there for our Druid, which I'm sure will excite many of you Druid fans out there. Now, we got to talk about Debilitating Roar, because we've seen some significant changes with this one. So it says shapeshift into a werebearer and bellow a mighty roar, reducing enemies' damage dealt by 70% as opposed to 50% previously for 4 seconds. This is going to be huge for crowd control, and especially I think the Druid is going to become extremely useful for going into dungeons with a friend. So I think that's going to be awesome. Now, what about Landslide? We've seen some changes there. Check it out. It says crush enemies between 2 pillars of earth, dealing up to 75% damage as opposed to the previous 112% damage right there. So I think a lot of you might actually frown on that change. Let me know if that is actually the case. And Tornado also got to see a nerf. It says lucky hit chance is not 33% anymore. It's 8%. That is a significant nerf right there. So yeah, as you can see, it's interesting with the Barbarian. Lucky chance for Barbarian has actually seen a buff overall, and then it seems like on the Druid we're seeing mostly nerfs regarding anything lucky chance. And I'm feeling like they're trying to create some sort of different play style between the classes and how you actually seek out weapons in the world as well. So that's my thinking behind this. I'm trying to think like a dev here. And then next up we have this one right here, Lightning Storm. Conjure a growing lightning storm that deals 32% damage as opposed to 25% per strike. And it says the number of strikes increase the longer the storm is channeled, up to a maximum of 5 at once. The key words here being at once. So this one might be very powerful during the server slam. I cannot wait to see what happens there. But what about innate Debilitating Roar? It says Debilitating Roar also slows enemies by 65% as opposed to 40% for its duration. So that's going to also be significant for that crowd control as well. So yeah, I know a lot of you love the Sorcerer, and overall it's seen a pretty big nerf. However, there are some cool buffs in here, so check it out. It says for Spark, Enhanced Spark. Each time Spark hits its primary target, it has a 40% chance to hit up to 3 additional enemies as opposed to the 20% chance previously, dealing 5% damage. So that's actually a significant buff right there. Also, Frostbolt did see some sort of buff regarding lucky hit chance from 30% to 40%. So some interesting things, once again, going on with lucky hit chance overall. However, Ice Shards saw a nerf with lucky hit chance, 16% as opposed to the 25%. So some weird things going on there. Now, Enhanced Ice Shards. Ice Shards have 40% chance to ricochet to another enemy as opposed to 15%. Ice shards always ricochet off a frozen enemy. So our ice shards, should be actually kind of useful. Now, ice blades, what about ice blades? So the cooldown has actually been increased to 16 seconds as opposed to 12, and conjure a pair of ice blades for 6 seconds that rapidly slash enemies for 22% damage as opposed to 30%, and have 30% chance to make them vulnerable for 2 seconds. So overall, an unfortunate nerf. Now, summoned ice blades says 20% of enhanced ice blades cooldown reduction is applied to your other skills as opposed to 50%. That's huge. That's a big nerf right there. Now, what about Hydra? I know a lot of you guys loved Hydra. Check it out. It says lucky hit chance is now 53% as opposed to 76% chance. Now, summon a 3-headed Hydra for 10 seconds as opposed to 12. So they shaved off 2 seconds there. Each head splits fire at enemies, dealing 12% damage instead of 30%. Whoa, that is, again, a huge, massive nerf. But Firewall also saw a nerf with lucky hit chance to 30% instead of 40%. And then Lightning Spear saw pretty much the same thing from 26% here as opposed to the 35% previously for lucky hit chance. Once again, some major nerfs towards that lucky hit chance. So they've definitely nerfed the Sorcerer overall, making them less, I guess you would say, godlike. So I'm kind of curious to see what you guys have to say about this one, and if you guys are going to be crying after the server slam. We'll have to wait and see your reaction. And yes, we cannot forget about the Rogue, of course. So some very interesting things going on with the Rogue. A kind of a mix of balance changes here, more on the defensive side of stuff, and of course, poison imbuement. So let's get into it right now. So first and foremost, we have Twisting Blades. Advanced Twisting Blades. It says when your Twisting Blades return, your active cooldowns are reduced by 0.25 second per enemy they pass through, up to 3 seconds. So this is definitely going to be considered an unfortunate nerf right there. However, with Poison Trap, it goes on to say this, countering Poison Trap. Poison Trap has a 30% chance to reset your imbuement skill cooldowns when activated as opposed to 20% previously. So this is a buff. We're going to talk about imbuement skills here a little bit more because it seems like Rogue is leaning into that a bit more. So let's get into Poison Imbuement. So it says this, the cooldown has actually been increased to 13 seconds as opposed to 9 seconds. That's unfortunate. Imbue your weapons with lethal poison. Your next 2 imbuable skills deal poison damage and apply 100% of their base damage as opposed to 70% previously as additional poisoning damage over 5%. So this is much more valuable of an ability this go around. But get this, there's more. If we go to Blended Poison Imbuement, critical strikes with poison imbued skills deal 75% increased poisoning damage as opposed to 30%. That is a massive buff right there. So we're going to see some very cool, I think, poison rogue builds here in the future, especially from the server slam. Now, on the side of defensive stuff, a lot of buffs going on here. Check it out. It says, for Agile, using a cooldown increases your dodge chance not by 9% total, but by 12% for 3 seconds instead of 2. So that's an interesting buff right there. And I love that, the rogue is seeing more defensive stuff. Furthermore, it says reactive defense gain 18% damage reduction as opposed to 13.5% total, while inflicted with control impairing effects. So it seems like they want you to get out there and take more risks to get more rewards with the rogue. So I think that's going to ask for more aggressive playstyle from you rogue players. Although I feel like the rogue is already aggressive, but it seems like they want to go all in with that approach and then get poison in the mixture. So I love my time with the Necromancer in the open beta. Let's see what has changed for the Necro going forward. And a lot has changed. So it says this right here. Bone Splinters generate essence is now 6 over 5. That's actually a buff. Now fire 3 Bone Splinters dealing 8% damage each as opposed to 22%. That is a significant nerf, big time. And then, yeah, nothing else has changed with the Bone Splinters right there. kind of bummed about that one. However, we got to talk about Bone Spear. So Enhanced Bone Spear says this. Bone Spear breaks into 3 shards when it is destroyed, dealing 25% damage each as opposed to 10% previously. A significant buff right there. So yeah, it seems like a bone-based build is still very much viable going forward. So that's cool to know. Now, what about Corpse Explosion? I know that was a go-to for a lot of you guys, so check it out right here. Detonate a corpse, dealing 50% damage to surrounding enemies as opposed to 75%. Man, I'm going to miss that so much. It feels like it's going to be a pretty big nerf right there, and I'm bummed about that one, let me tell you what. Now, Blood Mist. All right, let's talk about it, because the cooldown has changed. Instead of being 20 seconds, it's now 24 seconds. So you're going to have to wait a little bit longer there, of course. And the Golem, by the way, has seen some changes. So, you know, a lot of you are like, don't touch my Golem. So it says passive. You are protected by a Golem with X life that attacks for 17% damage instead of the 35% it did previously. The Golem sheds corpses as it takes damage still, so they haven't changed that mechanic. But yeah, a nerf overall for the Golem. However, Golem Mastery does change up some things. So hold up. It says increase the damage and life of your Golem by, instead of a total of 45%, you can go clear up to 75% now. So the Golem is more tanky, but it seems like its offensive abilities have been somewhat limited going forward. Now, the mages for the skellies have also changed, so check it out. Increase the damage and life of your skeletal mages by 60% in total, as opposed to 45% in total right there. So the mages are going to be more reliable and dependent upon going forward within your skelly army. So yeah, I definitely wanted to highlight some of the comments around the community discussing what is going on with the changes with the classes. So let's get into those right now. We have this one from Squirrel with a Nut. It says Barbarian has 4 nodes in their skill tree that affect thorns, and they nerfed 3 of them into the ground. LOL, unbelievable. Well, there goes my build. So it seems like a lot of you had plans for that thorn build. However, we have this. I'm also sad, but kinda understand. PvP Thorn Barbarian was disgustingly, powerful. There's a unique based on Thorn that made you untouchable when paired with this Barbarian's kit. So that's a good theory right there as to why they actually went in and kind of nerfed a Thorn build because of PvP. However, that stirred up some discussion. So let's get into this. So it says, this is exactly why it was nerfed. All these changes scream in-game beta, not our recent beta. So it seems like these changes that we're seeing right here could be based on the feedback from the in-game beta. That makes a lot of sense to me. And then we have this one. So it seems like we're getting a number shrink. It's a good thing. We were too powerful on level 25 already with the right gear. It kind of hurts, but it'll probably be very beneficial to the pacing of the game. Yes, so I think it's going to slow down the pacing of the game and make the rewards more rewarding as they should be, especially when it comes to obtaining that rare, unique that you finally obtained and you scream when you actually see it drop. You know what I mean? So I think that's what they're going to go after when it comes to the in-game. Now, we have this one right here from Crawler, my friend, who says, nothing as annoying as seeing someone justify a nerf with PvP. I hope this isn't going to be another one of those games where crap is always getting ruined over PvP. You know, I don't think that's going to be the case here with Diablo 4. At least I hope not. They haven't gone on record saying they expect PvP to be not the most balanced experience. So it seems like it's not their priority. That PvP is clearly not their priority. And let me know if that upsets you or not. Honestly, for me, the dungeon crawling and the in-game with friends, with co-op, for me, that's my priority going into this. PvP does sound like a lot of fun, but I know it's probably going to be tough as nails a month, 2 months down the road when playing this game, which I'm kind of excited for as well. All right, so we have this one right here. It says, can you correct me if I'm reading this wrong, but looking at the numbers, did Hydra Sorcerer get like 65% DPS nerf? Damn, that's harsh. Rest in peace, Dead Before Arrival. So there's some disappointment with what happened with the Sorcerer for sure. Then it says, played an ice build CD set up in the beta, and I fully expected it to get nerfed. The cooldown reduction was insane. You could almost spam ultimates when it got rolling, and Blizzard recognized, whoa, this is too godlike. Let's tone this back down. Let's have it as intended. As always, I have you guys covered for upcoming news and any big announcements related to this game, so stay tuned for more. Thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Take care.